Welcome, and thank you for joining today's Micro Accelerator featuring Cornell University. Before we begin, please ensure you have the Zoom chat panel open by using the associated icon located at the bottom of your screen. You may submit questions via chat throughout the presentations, and these questions will be answered during the Q&A session. Now, I will turn the time over to Vince Cornells, our Deputy Director of the Office of Minority Programs in the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity. Vince, the time is yours.
Thank you so much, Jamie. And I'm truly honored to be able to welcome you to today's event. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on the day. I was remarking to our partners at Cornell just a few months ago, we were dreaming of what could be. How can we expand knowledge to oftentimes locations and individuals that don't hear about these exciting opportunities? So it's our pleasure to be able to host today's event. I want to thank our partners from Cornell. And of course, no event like this happens without a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So I really want to thank all of our teammates within our Department of Office of Minority Programs, in particular, our teammates within our educational division. With that, it's my honor to turn the mic over to Ms. Christy Jackowitz. Christy, take it away.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Jamie, also. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Christy Jackowitz. I'm the Chief over Minority Education, Educational Institutions in the Office of Minority Programs that Vince leads, and also Economic Impact and Diversity, led by our Acting Director, Ann Augustin. Today, we will have Cornell presenting several opportunities in higher education to really help students and stakeholders understand some of the opportunities that are out there that you might not be aware of. We will start off with Anitra Douglas McCarthy, who is the Senior Director of Recruitment, Office of Inclusion and Student Engagement. We will also have a guest speaker, JJ Rivera, who will be speaking today, and he is a student at Cornell. And then we will wrap it up with Patrick Gooley, who's the Director of Federal Government Programs, and Dinashri Dixit, who's the Inside Director over Corporate Programs. So to get us started, we will begin with Anitra. So Anitra, just getting my questions up. So many moving parts. You are doing big things at the university. Tell me a little bit about Cornell and the Office of Inclusion and Student Engagement where you work.
So first of all, thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate having the time to be here with everyone today. I am going to start out, I will share some slides in just a second. I'm going to start out by sharing some information on Cornell, but I do want you to know that beyond that, the remainder of the information I'm going to share is generalized information about graduate school that is applicable to lots and lots of different institutions. So my hope for today is that I can kind of lay the groundwork for you and help you better prepare for future sessions like this. And then also maybe we can have some follow-up sessions to talk about Cornell. So can you see my slide? Perfect. Okay, so a little bit about Cornell. First off, we're located in a college town called Ithaca, New York. We're right in the center of New York State. We are about 4 hours northwest of New York City. New York City is where our medical college is located, and we also have the Cornell Tech campus that some of you may be interested in, located there. We also have satellite offices for some of our graduate programs located in New York City. So there's a lot of collaboration going back and forth between the main Ithaca campus where we live and then our New York City campuses. We are located on the homelands of the Gayacono, which are the Cayuga Nation. We have very strong ties to Native and Indigenous communities in our local area. And it's important to note this because Cornell has benefited tremendously from being situated on these lands specifically for a number of reasons, not just financially. We Currently, our current location, we're very strategically located. And so for a research institution like Cornell to be within short traveling distance between a lot of national labs, major metropolitan areas is a tremendous benefit to us. The other thing that you'll notice in the photo here is that we have amazing natural resources that a lot of locations do not have. So we have benefited from that. And particularly during COVID, where a lot of people have been sort of stuck inside because of the pandemic, we have been afforded the ability to be outside in natural areas. And so we're very lucky in that regard. In terms of graduate education at Cornell, we're a top tier research institution. So research really is what drives us. And we have about 22,000 students in total on the Ithaca campus. Most of them are undergrads. We have about 5,000 graduate students, a little over 5,000 graduate students who are participating in our master's and PhD programs. And one of the great things about Cornell, the two of the great things about Cornell, among other things, are that we have about 100 different graduate majors for you to choose from. So that's a lot. Most institutions don't quite have that many. So we do have a lot there to offer, and we are super interdisciplinary. And so one thing I will tell you is that every school you talk to is going to tell you how interdisciplinary they are. We are that way by design, and there are some really easy ways that you can tell if programs and schools are actually interdisciplinary. So at Cornell, it's really easy. Most of our faculty are members of more than one program. And you can tell that right on the websites. And you can tell by publications they put out and by the members of their lab group. So you'll be able to see that. So for instance, if you're in material science, they have engineers, they have physicists, they have all sorts of people from different disciplines coming together in any given lab. And what that does is it makes the research better, and it makes for a better experience for everyone. One thing I also want to point out is that faculty at the graduate level, faculty are the ones who are making the admissions decisions. That's not to say that other people don't get to weigh in on those, but the faculty are the ones who choose to admit students. And so that's important for you to know, and you'll see why going forward, because those faculty connections are really important. And then at Cornell, every school is different, but at Cornell, we have a centralized graduate school, and that's where I work. And we're the ones who govern master's and PhD programs. So within the graduate school, I work in one of the units, which is called the Office of Inclusion and Student Engagement, as Christy mentioned, and that's OISE for short. And so I sort of separated out our work into three sections. The first one is to make graduate education more accessible to underrepresented students, which is exactly what we're trying to do here. So we travel a lot, we participate in minority serving conferences, and we go to different schools and things like that. And that's a lot of what I focus on, is coaching and mentoring students on the path to graduate school. But we also do a lot of work on our own campus to make sure that our students are having a good experience once they are enrolled at Cornell. And so, for instance, to make our environment more inclusive at Cornell, we've done a lot of work with these admissions committees that I mentioned to make sure that they are evaluating applicants fairly and equitably and in a holistic fashion. And you'll hear more about that in just a minute. And then we provide a tremendous high level of support to the students we serve in our office. And so that I put a few bullet points here of some of the things that we really try to focus on. We do a lot of professional development, so students get to build their skills over time. Graduate school is an exploration process for students. You're finding yourself, you're growing as a person, and it can be a really transformative experience for you. And so we are there to help along the way, and that will help make your time in graduate school better. So these are things I want you to be looking at when you're considering different graduate programs. We also do a lot to build community. So Cornell is a predominantly Caucasian, a white institution. And so it wasn't really designed to be supportive of underrepresented and students from marginalized identities. And so what is super critical for us is that we facilitate the opportunities for underrepresented students to meet one another and create their support network around them. And so that's a lot of the work that we do in our office specifically. We have a lot of campus partners, but that's what we focus on. We celebrate our students, we highlight their successes, we promote them, and we want their work to be known. And it sometimes it just doesn't happen naturally. So that's a lot of what we do.
I love that. I love your heart behind your service of inclusion in Cornell, and I love that you said that it's not just about bringing the students in, but also supporting them along the way.
Absolutely.
And one of the courses that you guys actually provided to our office really separated diversity and inclusion, and I think it's really important that those are understood. It's one thing to bring the students in, but it's another thing to include them in those opportunities that make them feel a part of the campus.
No
What are
question
some
about
of the reasons why people choose to pursue graduate study, and what type of degrees offered at Cornell are most sought after by energy companies?
So I'll skip over this slide, but these are some of the student organizations that are affiliated with our office. And you'll get a copy of these slides, just so you know, so you'll have the opportunity to look through them later. Why most of our students, I would say, go on to graduate school is because they're intellectually curious. They have found an area of study that's of interest to them, either in undergrad or they're working and they're doing something that they really like and they want to learn more about it and they want to take that next step. And so graduate school is a good option there. It is an opportunity to explore some new avenues too, and try some new work. And I would say the other main reason is that people want to get ahead in their careers. So maybe a master's or a PhD would help them further their career along, or they have a profession in mind that requires a master's or requires a PhD. And it is a fact, and you can look at the Department of Labor, Bureau statistics, you can see that the more education you have, the more employable you are, and the more earning potential you have. And that is still, just so you know, that hasn't been tremendously affected by COVID. That is still the case even in COVID. So it still pays, and it probably always will pay to further your education in terms of jobs and in terms of the amount of money you have the potential to make. So I mentioned we have master's degrees and PhDs at the graduate level. There are two different types of master's degrees specifically. There are professional masters and research masters, and I really want you to know the difference between them. And it's super simple. Professional master's degrees, you don't do any research. You're only taking classes. You might do a short project, but you're not doing research. So if you've tried research and it's really not for you, maybe a professional master's might be a good option. And some people view a master's degree as sort of a smaller step beyond the PhD. So if you're not quite ready to do a PhD, that's, you're talking a good number of years. 5.5 years is our average. But regardless of that, the master's is 1, 2, maybe 3 years if it's super clinical. But master's degrees prepare you to work in industry. They prepare you to do research if you're doing a research master's, but it's going to be somebody else's research. You're not necessarily going to be the one applying for the grants and getting the grants and doing your research, but you can still do research with a research master's. The main issue with master's programs, though, is that they don't offer a lot of funding. So most of our students have to pay for these degrees themselves, and that's incurring debt. So it's something to consider. One point I really did want to make here is that particularly in engineering, so we have a lot of master's programs in engineering disciplines, and there are companies, if a student goes and works after their bachelor's and they're working for a company, the company will pay for them to come get the master's at Cornell, and then they have a short retainer clause where they have to go back and work for that company for a short period of time, usually 5 years or something like that. And so that might be a way for you to pay for a master's if that's what you want to do. However, I would encourage you to consider PhDs. So first and foremost, you don't have to have a master's degree to come into a PhD program. And this is not just at Cornell. This is at a lot of places. Some fields, will tell you we prefer for students to have masters, but at Cornell, that's not the standard. 95% of our PhD students come in without having a master's. They come directly from undergrad. And in a minute, you'll meet JJ, my colleague, who's a graduate student. He came in right out of undergrad. And so it's something that we foster. So PhDs are very academically and in research driven, of course. They prepare you to do your own research, so you can go out and get grants and do your own research. Certainly you can work in whatever industry it is that you're in. And about 50% of our PhD students come in thinking or knowing that they want to become a tenure track faculty at a four-year institution. So in the United States, you have to have a PhD to have a tenure track faculty position. Research or teaching college, it doesn't matter. But the great thing about PhDs, though, is they are fully funded. And this is something I really want you to get in your head, because a lot of people don't know this. I didn't know it, and a lot of people don't know it. And fully funded means that we pay your tuition, we pay for your health insurance, and we give you a stipend. The stipend is basically your paycheck. And so if you're applying to a bunch of different schools, and you start getting your offer letter, so they're admitting you, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at your offer letter and you're going to see dollar signs. What is my stipend? How much am I going to get paid? And what I want you to do, if that happens, if that is the path you choose, and you start getting these offer letters, I want you to start looking at the cost of living for each of the places where these institutions are located, because you do not need to incur 1 penny of debt to do a PhD in this country, period. And I will help you figure this out. If you don't know where to start, you just call on me, Cornell or otherwise. I made a very short list of some of the different programs that are offering energy related research at Cornell. There are others. A lot of them are certainly STEM fields, but we have like communication, engineering management, our MBA programs even do work with entrepreneurship and things like that. And then I included some of the dedicated research centers and institutes down in the bottom right corner that specifically focus on supporting the research that's being done in clean energy.
That's amazing, Anitra. Thank you so much. One of the other areas that we are focused on is technical assistance, trying to make sure that when students aren't sure about the application process, especially first-generation students who don't have maybe a community around them to help them with the process, that they have other resources to apply. Does Cornell provide any tips or workshops or anything that would help students with the application process?
So I can tell you a couple of things. That's what my office does. And so I have a couple of upcoming events. And once, when we move on to you all hearing from JJ, I'll post a couple of links in the chat for you for some upcoming events that you can register for. And they'll be more in depth. We have more time to focus on sort of the nuts and bolts of the actual application. So here, I just wanted to kind of delineate what I think is really important. I've been doing this a long time. I've literally coached thousands of underrepresented students on the path to graduate school and on their applications. I review hundreds and hundreds of application essays every single year, and I will do it for you. So there are people who will help you like me, and there should be people like me at other schools as well. I can help you find them. So anyway, I think first and foremost, what you should be looking for in a graduate program is the academic fit. You're not going to be applying to programs that don't suit your interest, because graduate school, you really get to study something you like. That's the really cool thing about graduate school. Undergrad, you have to take a whole bunch of stuff that they make you take. Some of it you like, some of it you probably didn't love. In graduate school, you get to focus on something that hopefully you're really passionate about. So it's all about that fit. If you're looking at PhD programs specifically, you want to seek out the faculty who are doing the research that is of most interest to you. And please know that your interests can change. A lot of times you get into your graduate program and you don't even know what's available until you're there, and your eyes will be open wide. So don't think that you have to come in knowing exactly what you want to do for the next 5 years, because it will change. But academic fit is really important. And then make sure that there are jobs available for you. You are not doing a graduate degree for no reason. You're doing this so you can get a job and have the career path that you are choosing for yourself. Cost is probably going to be a factor if you're looking at master's programs. Geographic location might matter to you personally. I don't think that is the most important factor in deciding on where to go. I really don't, to be honest with you, because again, it's the academics and your curiosity and the passion for your field that's going to drive you through the 1 to 6 years that you're going to be in whatever type of program you're in. Admissions criteria, I put this in here for a very specific reason. And the reason is there are certain programs, Cornell doesn't do this, but there are certain programs that publish minimum requirements like GPA requirements and GRE requirements specifically. And the GRE is called the Graduate Record Examination, GRE. And it's basically the SAT of graduate school. So it's a standardized test that all students in a given program have to take. There are programs that publish minimum required scores. We call them cutoffs. And that means that they won't really look at you if you don't meet these specific scores. Now, I'm not telling you not to apply to programs that publish those or promote those. We stay away from those at Cornell because we know that those are not the best predictors of a student's ability, their resilience, or their potential to be successful in our graduate programs, like end of story. So we stay away from those, and we really encourage our faculty, even behind the scenes, not to be utilizing those. And but some schools do. And so if you do come across a program that you really want to apply to, but maybe you don't meet their minimum score, all that means is you have to ask some additional questions and really try to figure out how they're actually evaluating applicants. So does your coursework matter in the field? Does your research experience matter? Because those things matter so much more than the numerical scores you get on a standardized test, really. Resources and facilities, just making sure that you have the ability to do the research that you're there to do and that you have the resources available to you. And then the last three I like to point out because I think they're important things for you to be looking at early on while you're making your long and then your short list of programs to apply to. And they're things that students don't often think about until they need them. And so what type of support services and community building activities are available to you once you get to that school? And ask them what the institution and what their programs are doing to advance the climate and culture within that institution. Their responses will be a little bit telling to you in some instances. And make sure you're also asking graduate students, not just program directors and not just faculty. Make sure you're asking the graduate students because they're the ones who are feeling it themselves. Everybody has a different perspective. And then professional development opportunities, which I already told you about, what we're doing at Cornell. And the way you figure these things out is by asking questions. These are some additional questions that I want you to be asking, just some questions for basic planning purposes. How long does it take to complete this program? I said that all PhDs are fully funded. How reliable is that financial support? It's very reliable at most institutions, but ask the questions. You'll be a much more informed applicant if you just take the extra step and ask these questions, and you'll feel better about your application too. What is your retention rate? How many students start this program and actually complete it? I want you to have realistic expectations here. 100% is not realistic because life happens. Sometimes people start a graduate program and they're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was gonna be. This is not for me. I'm gonna go work. Or just life happens. But I will tell you, if the retention rate is low, you need to investigate that further before you apply, or certainly before you accept an offer, because something might be wrong and they might not be treating their students very well or whatever. A lot of programs have pretty good retention rates. And then where are recent graduates getting jobs? This is a good question to ask before you apply, because it'll tell you a couple of things. One, there are jobs available. And two, that the program is preparing students well for these jobs. So employers find these students attractive once they're getting ready to graduate from this particular program. And then three, what type of career services are available to you as a student to prepare you for interviews, prepare your CV or your resume, make sure you're interviewing well, preparing job talks, all that kind of stuff. The last question on here is super, super important. How will you be paired with your faculty advisor? A lot of people don't ask this question either. They do this in three main ways. And there's a really specific reason why I put this question on here. In biological and life sciences, most of those groups do actual lab rotations where you do short stints in usually 3 different labs, and then you kind of mutually decide which one is the best fit for you to pursue. Then they also have first year seminar series. Some of them do both of these, but in ones that don't have lab rotations, they often have a first year seminar series. All first year students, it's a requirement for them to take it. And you go usually during lunchtime and you listen to faculty who are interested in taking on students, new students. You listen to them talk about their research. If it's interesting to you, then you go meet with them and then you decide if it's a good fit. The third one is the one I want to talk about, which is what I would call direct admit. And what that means is they admit you based on what you write in your application essay. So not a lot of programs. I only know of 3 programs at Cornell that do it like that. So, you know, I have to say that it's really tough when programs do this because you don't know them. You haven't really met them and they haven't met you. So they're writing, they're making this decision based on what you've written in an essay. And if you are applying to programs that direct admit like that, I'm not telling you not to apply to them, perfectly good programs, all of that. Make sure you have some interactions with people in that program, with the faculty. So you have already developed a relationship with them. So you can feel comfortable if they do admit you.
Thank you, Anitra. Really resonated with me because my daughter, her PhD program had the exact kind of issue with her advisor, and she thought she was going to be able to choose, and it didn't quite work out that way. So really good advice. Hopefully we can catch students before they go into a program to ask these really great questions so they'll be prepared. Is there anything more you want to share before you introduce the student special guest?
So there are a couple of things. So I put up here the different requirements for the application. This is really standard. All institutions, you know, every program chooses their deadline, so they're all different. The requirements will be slightly different. You have an online application, you have the research essay that you're going to write. For some programs, that's the only essay you're going to write. But for others, you have to also write a second essay, which would be a personal or diversity essay. At Cornell, so the office I'm in, we administer our diversity fellowship. So if you are eligible for fellowships, please throw your hat in the ring, because fellowships are the best source of funding as a graduate student. They free up your time to do exactly what you're there to do, which is do research and take classes. And you don't have to teach. That's what you're doing. Okay. So fellowships equal freedom. And of course, we need your transcripts, 3 letters of recommendation for PhDs, 2 for some master's programs. GRE, you may have heard, we already talked about it, but you may have heard that there is a huge national movement to get away from utilizing the GRE, at least in the traditional sense. So I don't want you to be super intimidated by the GRE. And if y'all have questions about the GRE, either you've taken it and you haven't done super well, you come to me and I will tell you exactly what. I'll look at all of your application package and I'll tell you exactly what I think. In 16 years of doing this, I have only recommended 1 time that a student retake the GRE, 1 time. So not very often. And there is the likelihood you won't even have to take it anymore because so many fields are dropping it. Very few STEM fields require the writing sample. And I also want you to be asking for application fee waivers. So you don't have to pay to apply to Cornell. You just have to send me an email and I'll waive your application fee for you. Other schools, they have different mechanisms, the way that they hand out or disseminate fee waivers. It does not hurt to ask. You should ask. The best they can say is, sure, I'll waive your $100. The worst they can say is, no, we don't have them. And then you're looking for programs that evaluate students holistically. So they're looking at the whole student. They're not just relying on a GPA or a GRE score. We want them to be taking in your background, your preparedness, your coursework, your research, all of that. And then COVID has been extremely disruptive to a lot of students. And our admissions committees across the United States have come out very vocally and said, we are not holding that against our applicants. We are all in this together. And so we know that some people do not thrive in an online learning environment. It's just not that good. So here are my main tips for you. Get as much experience as you possibly can in your field and related fields. You can do this in a number of ways. Internships are a great way to do this. Search as early as you can. Start searching as early as you can. So if you're applying next cycle, now is a perfect time. And the reason why is because you want to be able to have time to ask all these questions, and you want to be able to have the time to talk to faculty and talk to their graduate students, because graduate students tell you the truth. Not that faculty don't, but they just have a different perspective. The application essay is the most important component of your graduate school application, and I'm super serious about that. So that's where you want to spend your time, because it is the opportunity you get to tell your story and tell them how you ended up applying to graduate school and why you're applying to that program specifically. And they get to hear it in your own words. And we can talk about other things about the essay later, but make sure you're choosing recommenders that know you really well, because you want to get really good letters of recommendation. And there are some things you can do to hedge your bets, because that's the one component of your application you can't completely control. And the number one reason why applications are not read is because you missed a deadline or you didn't submit something that was required. So I know it sounds really obvious, but just pay really close attention to what they're asking you for and follow them to a T. And if you're not sure, ask the question. And so to that end, I recommend that you have a database where you put all this information. You're going to be applying to probably 5 to 10 institutions, and it's going to get really, really confusing. Deadlines, requirements, who you've spoken to, the pros and the cons, get it all in one place so you are not confused and you don't miss a deadline, basically. And I did mention that summer internships are super helpful. And so they're immersive experience. You get paid to go do research and to be in labs, whether they're national labs at institutions like Cornell, at other institutions. And I'll post some links to places where you can search for these summer internships. And I highly, highly recommend them. You'll hear from JJ in literally a minute. He did internships and it helped him so much. And so the main takeaways are, I hope that you realize graduate school could be a really good option for you. It was for me. And if I can do it, literally anybody can do it. And honestly, it can change your life. And there are people who will help you every step of the way. You have to find them, and we can help you do that. But there are people out there who really want to help you on the path to graduate school. Keep an open mind. You never know what opportunities can come your way. You'll be really, really surprised. And I always say, just be a sponge, soak it all up and try to enjoy it. It's hard. Graduate school is hard, but just try to be as positive as you can and try to take opportunities when they come your way, and certainly believe in yourself. A lot of students, myself included, had horrible, horrible imposter syndrome, and it can really eat you up. But you know what? Everybody has it. And there are just people that are so much better at hiding it and making it look like they don't. And so in those instances, excuse me, in those instances where it gets really tough, you reach out to your community and you call on people like me and my colleagues in the Office of Inclusion and Student Engagement, and people like that who have been through all of this. And we are there to sort of demystify all of this. And so my email is on the screen. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce my colleague, JJ Fuentes Rivera. JJ is a third-year PhD student in our chemistry program at Cornell. And I've known JJ a long, long time. And he did his undergraduate degree at the University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras. And he came right to Cornell right after that. So no master's degree, he came right on through. And so with that, I'll stop sharing my screen. I thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Christy and JJ.
Thank you, Anitra. That was amazing. Great information. Hi, JJ. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. First of all, thank you, Anitra, for such a very nice introduction. I'm pulling over my slides here, so.
Okay. So we'll get started with our first question, and that is, why did you choose to pursue graduate study? What was unique about your situation that you thought it would be a good fit?
All right. Before that, I want to make sure everyone sees my slides. Is that okay? Okay. So why did I choose to pursue graduate study? First of all, I did a lot of two internships, right? Summer internships. And as Anitra said earlier, they helped me a ton to figure out what I wanted to do. It helped explore your research interest. Once you're at the point of filling up your applications, right, it also helps you save some money with the fee waivers as well. I don't want in the left side, I posted some pictures there, some of my experiences. The one on the top, that was a visit to Brookhaven National Laboratories. And I was entirely amazed by the fact that they could actually write down "Hi, JJ Fuentes Rivera" in such a small length, right, in the fiber, by using and then take an image of it by using scanning electron microscopy. I was like amazed by the fact that technology exists. So the diameter, that's just the diameter of a human hair. So it's kind of a little bit of mind blowing, at least from my perspective. And at that point, that was summer 2016. Yes, 2016. And then the center image there was the first time I ever used a glove box, right? I felt like a real scientist inside that glove box. It was very exciting. That was actually the summer internship at Cornell with the Helios Handrath Energy Lab, which is an amazing experience. And I had then the chance to present those the research project at a conference, at ICS conference, which is the poster you see in the bottom. So that definitely, I say, right, highly encourage you to apply for REU programs. It helps a lot to explore interest and see. I see it more like it's like a practice for graduate school, right? If you really want to pursue that and you have that experience on REU program and you really liked it, that means that's a good sign that graduate school it's good for you. So graduate school works at the frontier of knowledge, right? So it's amazing. They're testing cutting edge new ideas, right? There's a huge difference between like a professional field where they use usually knowledge that has been developed through previous years, and then graduate school and research. They work at the frontier of knowledge, right? So they're constantly creating knowledge. So if you find yourself that you're a very curious person, which I believe I am a very curious person, that's a good sign too, because curiosity is often what fuels and drives, right, the creation of new knowledge, and it's a good sign that you may enjoy research, right? And then so why another reason I decided to join the graduate school experience was, so after I discovered the whole graduate school, my goal was to become a professor. I discovered that I really enjoyed communicating and teaching science in one of the tutor courses in my undergraduate. So, and then I explored the energy field as well. So I decided like, hey, so yeah, this is what I wanted to do. I want I want to pursue a faculty, a tenure track position, all right, becoming a professor, and contribute my grain of sand in the clean energy field, especially like the solar energy conversion.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and I appreciate you differentiating the type of graduate studies for our audience and making sure that it's very clear, you know, why you would pursue one over the other. Why did you choose Cornell? I'm sure you had many options. I'm also curious how many schools you applied for, and then how did you end up selecting Cornell?
Yeah, so I applied. I took an interest advice. I did a Google an Excel sheet. I remember for all the schools that I wanted and all the application requirements, and also you know, their deadlines, which is very important. The letters of recommendations, like all those deadlines. So I applied to, I think it was 7 or 8 schools, if I recall correctly. I got 3 or 4 offers, if I recall correctly. So what I did is, you know, why did I chose Cornell? Like, why did I ultimately chose Cornell? I would say my REU experience here, that was extremely important to figure out that I really wanted Cornell. I would say REU like internships are secretly a way of recruiting from universities as well, right? Because you get to have a test, like not a test, like get a sense of the school itself. You get to interact directly with writer students. You get to interact with directly with professors as well in the program that you're going to apply. So the experience that I had in REU here really helped me out. And not only that, but they have amazing research facilities, right? They have the CNF facility, which we had the chance in the REU to have a visit to the clean room facility. Sorry, that's the top left image there. That's me. It's not an astronaut. That's just to cover, right? It's a clean room. So that was amazing. Not only that, there's also like the CCMI research facilities. You don't often get also like a synchrotron in your backyard, right? Cornell has the Cornell High Energy synchrotron source, which or CHESS. So it has a pretty amazing facilities around here. So that was definitely a huge drive as well. As I mentioned earlier, the highly collaborative and professional environment that I encountered in that REU program, right, internship. And as Anitra mentioned earlier as well, I would say if you consider the cost of living here at Ithaca, yeah, we have a pretty generous stipend. You can have the same stipend, and once you consider and normalize, right, by cost of living, and let's say if you live in a very in a place that like a crowded city or something like that, versus, so it helps a lot too. So that's one good thing to consider as well. And the place, right? Ithaca is a hidden gem for numerous. It has a lot of nature around. So it have beautiful state parks, hiking trails, biking. If you see the images there, those 4 images on the bottom left, those I took myself. That's BB Lake. I love BB Lake. If you can see the image there, so that's where I work in the Red Star there. That's Baker Lab. And BB Lake is just a couple minutes away of walking, right? It's an amazing the nature. So sometimes you get I don't know. I wanna have lunch, and I just take my lunch with me, walk around the lake, sit down, enjoy, and then come back to lab, right? So especially now during the summer, right? So
yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of perks to Cornell, not just the school and the faculty, but also the surrounding access to nature. So that's wonderful, and I believe Anitra brought that up as well. As a student, so one of our areas of focus is really building equity and educational opportunities for minorities and making sure that minority students have access to resources and the same as any other student. So as a student, minority student in this Cornell community, what were some of your experiences, and what is something you would want to share with other minority students who might be considering a school that's not, that is a majority school?
absolutely. So So as an underrepresented student, right, I'm from Puerto Rico, I'm Hispanic. There's a lot of good organizations of Latino at Cornell as well. And then it was recently founded, we recently founded a small group called Puerto Ricans, Puerto Ricans at Ithaca, right? So in this community, is not only from Cornell students from several different backgrounds, right? We have students in aerospace engineering, we have students in biomedical engineering, we have students in chemistry, we have students in Latino studies. So it's a very diverse in terms of this group of Puerto Ricans, and we also extended to a broader community. So there's people from not necessarily are at Cornell, but they are either working as a staff or working at Ithaca itself. So it's a broader community, and that's I'm very thankful that we could had this that group. We have a few images there. Not only that, but there's also for Hispanic and Latinos at Tompkins County itself. There's the Latino Civic Association. There's also a Latino Cornell group, a student organization. And then on the right side here, there's also the first generation, we call it FIGLY, first generation and low income graduate student organization, which I'm part of, and I'm very thankful that it was founded as well. And last but definitely not least, in the chemistry department, there has been a recently newly found graduate group, which we call ourselves CORGI, the Chemists for Outreach and Graduate Inclusion, right? So this is I'm very excited about this project, this organization, and we are committed to spread science, careers in chemistry, and we also encourage everyone in the audience to reach out to us in the Gmail. We do a lot. They did a workshops for like NSF grants proposals. We are planning a lot of outreach to get to underrepresented communities as well, and we are committed to enhance the diversity, equity, and inclusion within not only the chemistry field, but in the science field as well. Right?
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. As we start to round up some of your questions, I'm curious about what were some of the best things you experienced as being a graduate student in Cornell, and also what do you know now that you wish you had known before that would have maybe helped you have less hurdles in the process?
Absolutely. Great. Those are great questions. So let's begin with the first. So what are the best things? There are so many things, but I will start with ones that are more important for me at least. So they're very supported in a transparent administration here at Cornell, right? In terms of all the requirements that you need to do to complete your degree. They're always very helpful in case you need have a doubt or something. You email them. Very responsive in that sense, and they're highly engaged with students' choice career development or career of choice development. For example, in my career, so I wanted to pursue a tenure track position, and there are plenty of workshops here. I just put it out there, the Future Professors Institute, Advancing Diversity in Academy. That was is going to be this summer. So once you sign up, once you identify what your goals are, Cornell is very good at helping you accomplish those goals, right? Which was exactly what Anitra was talking before. And you get these emails about, so if you want an industry, you get emails about industry opportunities. If you want academia, you get emails about this type of workshops, which are extremely helpful and important for career development as a graduate student and as a professional, right? And Cornell is also very good at building up community in the graduate school in general. So there's something we call the Big Red Barn. It's an amazing place. There's a lot of activities that take place there, and they really do an amazing job in terms of keeping the graduate school community together and Or right now with all pandemic, right, activities has been a little bit less, but before that's one of my favorite places to go. Also, they do a lot of like writing sessions in the barns. You can go there, enjoy a cup of coffee. Sometimes they have coffee and food for free as well, which is amazing. And they help you out with writing and the writing groups. And not only that, there's also like trivia. There's a lot of things going on in the bar. So if you're a graduate student here at Cornell, you definitely want to have a visit to the Big Red Barn. And for the other question, and this is very important for people, and it's exactly what Anitra was talking about earlier. So what do I know now that I wish I knew? In the left side hand there, those are my actual GRE scores, and that's my GPA and my NPA, which is major GPA, and my experiences, right? So I understood from the beginning that my application was not perfect, right? And you can see the numbers, you can judge by yourself. And this is something Cornell is really, really, really good, and Anitra mentioned it before. So I focus on strengthening my application with research experiences. And I looked for the programs that I applied for. I looked at programs that I knew they took a holistic review of the applicants, right? Because if I apply for a program that says, oh, if you cannot get here if you don't have more than 3.8 GPA, you can see my GPA is not that high, right? So I was not able to get to that. So that's why I wish I knew that before, and that's an important thing you should know. If you find yourself in this, strengthen your application, research experiences. I had 2 REUs. I also did research in my home university as well. So another thing that I want to say is take courses relevant to your field of interest, right? It helps build up your transcript and your application. And stop comparing yourself with others. That's a very important, right? We all come from different backgrounds, right? So, and there's this imposter syndrome that sometimes drive. If you have the numbers in your head, right? Like, oh man, I have a GPA of 3.214. I don't belong here. I cannot get there because I'm not enough. That's not true, right? And I think Cornell has done an amazing job on this sense on making sure, right, that that's not true anymore. It may have been true before, but that's changing, right? And I wish I knew before also how to effectively use Google Calendar. It's an amazing tool, and not only Google Calendar, but other digital calendars, right? So I would encourage everyone to try to get familiarized with them. It helps organize your personal and academic events, and it's amazing for good time management. Another thing I wish I knew, how to learn how to use Zotero. Zotero is an open source software for reference management, and it helps you stay updated with articles that are being published in your field, and it helps run research like smoothly. And there's a lot of others. I use Zotero, but there's like Mendeley, and there's many others. But at least I would highly encourage yourself to get familiar with any of these softwares, because they're gonna help a ton when you get to grad school, right? I think that's, let's see.
Yeah, no, that was a really great summary, really great information. I really appreciate you coming as a student to come and represent a real experience, because I think sometimes when we present these events and all these opportunities, students are listening to faculty, and of course faculty are going to say, all the right things, but hearing from a peer, I think really just hones in that this is a real opportunity with real experiences that are really going to benefit a person's life. So thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. And now we're going to transition over to Pat Gooley and Dinashri Dixit to discuss a little bit about opportunities with DOE. So Dinashri, are you there?
Yes, sorry, I was just turning my video and turning my mute off. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So, you know, you guys, we've been working together for, it feels like about a year, but I'm not sure exactly when we got started. It feels like it's been a while. I definitely feel very close to both of you. You have such amazing hearts for the effort that we've been making to build some equity and access to educational opportunities. And, you know, our minority-serving institutions have been filling this gap for a long time. And, you know, it's an opportunity for majority schools to step up and really ensure that our minority students are having access to wherever they want to go. And so I want to ask you a little bit about how you have been working with our department, if you want to share a little bit about that experience, and what are some insights, if any, you have observed during this process?
Pat, would you like me to go first? Perfect. Okay. So hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining, and to Christy and the team. It's such an honor. I know you always give us a lot of thanks, but really the honor is ours to be a part of this program and to have been able to bring everybody together, and just so thankful for Anitra and JJ today as well. I definitely learned new things about Cornell, and they made me very proud. So very excited to hear that. Just to give you a little background, Pat and myself were colleagues on our corporate sales team. So there is a whole other part of Cornell where we've created professional development training. A lot of companies and organizations and individuals go through that training. It is created by Cornell faculty, and folks can earn a lot of great knowledge from that, very application-based. So they're not students of Cornell University, but they get access to Cornell faculty. And so that's where Pat and I reside within the Cornell structure. And for us, it's been so exciting to be working with Christy over, it seems like a very long time, but always a very fun time, is that there is a relationship between the DOE and Cornell, and definitely over the past 5 years, the DOE has provided grants to many different programs. In fact, one of the ones that JJ mentioned in terms of the chess program, the DOE had provided a grant for that as well. And so really working on things like clean energy, sustainable, there's much more. And to be very open with all of you, I wouldn't understand half of what I read. You would, but for someone like me, I don't totally understand everything I'm reading when I see those grants, but obviously great stuff. So this opportunity for us to link together and provide this support to the students in the MESEP program was, and to all the other DOE students and community, is just really a wonderful thing. And the biggest observation I have is just this willingness to provide knowledge and resources, and just a very generous spirit from DOE, wanting to really strengthen the community, give any and all resources, providing these webinar sessions, bringing folks together of so many different universities, letting everybody know what is available, because sometimes the best thing for you is so unknown, and making sure that everybody knows it's available. And it might seem to be too good to be true, but don't let it fool you. It can be something that you should definitely pursue and look into, as Anitra and JJ did such a great job of sharing. So those are just a few of my observations. And hopefully I answered your question, Christy, because I gave a lot of information there.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think what was very fun is to hear JJ talk about one of our national labs and realize there is a longstanding relationship between, you know, the experiences that students are having and working with Cornell. So you two have a great opportunity for our DOE MESEP interns, which we'll discuss separately. I realized the question was still in there. And you know, our Wednesday webinar. So we have talked about doing on-demand courses to make those available to minority students and to our interns in the Department of Energy. MESEP is projecting about 90 potentially interns that we will have this year. And then we also have like Mickey Leland, we have the SULI, we have all these different internship programs in the agency. And so I am working with the Human Capital Office and also with some of the internship program managers or contractors to make sure that students will be aware of these resources. Why don't you share with us what the on-demand is, what it is that you're offering to the students and how they can take advantage of it and why this would be a really great resource for them.
Absolutely.
Questions.
Absolutely. Sure, absolutely. So what we're really excited for is to be able to provide that professional development training that that we had just mentioned, and make that available to everybody, and a targeted program. So in our professional development collection, we have a lot of business skills that go beyond the foundational level, but also some that are at the foundational level as well. And so we're putting that together for everybody so that you'll be able to go into the portal, and there are specific lessons that we worked with Christy that she felt would be really beneficial. And so there'll be a targeted focus, but the entire collection will actually be available to you. It's over 950 lessons right now, and it covers everything from leadership, communication, there's systems thinking, there's marketing, there's women in leadership for the women that are in this group. And we encourage the men also to take it because you see it from a different perspective. There's just so much content in this collection, and you'll really be able to also see how is Cornell faculty. It's a great preview to see what Cornell faculty is like. It's obviously not a lecture format because we would lose folks in a professional development setting, but you're going to be able to see, again, Cornell faculty who contribute and author this content are the same Cornell faculty that are part of the programs that Anitra and JJ are talking about. So we're not outsourcing our content and then putting Cornell's name on it. All of it is from the faculty at Cornell. And so we're very excited to give you this opportunity to be able to go into the portal, log in, and go through these lessons at your own pace. They are a self-paced on-demand program. It's not just a lot of video, it's very interactive. There are, in some lessons, case studies, and others there are assessment tools that you'll link out so you can get a base understanding of where you're at. I could go on and on and on about what's in them, but it's a very, for a self-paced online experience, it's, I think, very impactful and can be very transformational for folks that put that effort into it. We know you're very busy with the rest of with everything you're doing for school and with working with the DOE, and there's so much more. So we don't want it to be overwhelming for you, but at the same time, we didn't want to make that decision and keep the opportunity from you from being able to participate.
Absolutely. And so this is just open for the summer. It will be accessible to DOE interns and applicants of our internship program as well. So we will work with Cornell to get a link out to those students so they can participate. And those students who have participated in this particular event certainly can reach out to me. So when that link is available, we can send it to you. And then is there anything more you would like to share with our audience before we close out today?
I don't have anything additional except to say thank you again to you, Christy, and then to everybody who's participating and then who will partake in these programs, and wishing you just all the best for everything that you do in the future. Very excited again to be a part of this, and I'll toss it over to Pat if there's anything that I might have left out, or there's anything that you wanted to share.
I just wanted to say thank you as well. We place tremendous value on this partnership with the Department of Energy, and very excited to be part of it, and look forward to helping them, and best of luck to all the students and interns, and just very excited to help them all and see what we can do to make them successful. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. And now I'm going to go to the chat to read any questions that have come through. If you're still, formulating your questions, you can go ahead and start typing those in now. And then whoever the question is for, go ahead and respond after I read it. So are there any graduate scholarships geared toward diverse individuals? And I'm thinking this is for Anitra.
You bet. The way funding works at the graduate level is a little bit different than what you might know at the undergraduate level. We don't have financial aid in the traditional sense. And so there are scholarships and there are fellowships. I did touch on fellowships a little bit. Fellowships really don't have a lot of strings tied to them, and they are usually more substantial in terms of the financial element, so they give you more money. Scholarships, a lot of times they're smaller amounts of money and you have to kind of piece them together to get a whole semester or a whole year's worth of tuition. Now at the PhD level, you're really only looking at fellowships. Master's level, you might be able to find some scholarships. The best database for searching for funding opportunities is at UCLA, and it's called GRAPES. All you have to do is Google UCLA GRAPES, and they have a searchable database of scholarships and fellowships. At Cornell, we have two different types of fellowships. We have fellowships that are administered by the different programs. They're not necessarily diversity fellowships. And then we have the fellowships that we run in my office, which are the diversity fellowships. And those are the ones you have to write a personal essay to be considered for those. And like I said, if you are eligible for fellowships of any kind, please throw your hat in the ring because they are so beneficial to you. And all of the students who receive diversity fellowships at Cornell, or if they are eligible for diversity fellowships, and let's say they weren't selected because they're competitive, and they are submitted by faculty, nominated by faculty, they're part of what we call the Dean Scholars program at Cornell. And we have programming just for Dean Scholars. So other institutions do sort of similar things. Most institutions do have some sort of diversity fellowships.
Thank you. The next question is, do you give credit for workplace accomplishments? Do you have an accelerated cohort for graduate programs? And are you a yellow ribbon school?
Okay, so we are a yellow ribbon institution. And so we don't have accelerated programs necessarily at the graduate level, with the exception of our MBA programs, the Master of Business Administration, which, by the way, I don't work for. The business school is a completely separate entity at Cornell. And how that works is, if you already come in with an advanced degree, you can do an accelerated MBA, or if you're a working professional, you have the opportunity to do an accelerated MBA, which shaves off 1 year, basically, is how that works. So not in the sense that I think you're referring to. And now talking about credit for your work, we don't have like formal credit that you would like get like 20 credit hours on your transcript, because at the graduate level, it's not really like that, particularly with PhDs. You don't have to have any certain number of credit hours for the PhD. Like some students literally have like very, very, very like 10 credit hours total, because they're spending their time doing research and they don't have to take a lot of classes. Master's level, yeah, they're a little more structured in the coursework you take, but we don't give credit for like a life or professional experience. One college in New York State that I know that does is called Empire State College, and they will give you lots of credit for your experiences in your professional life. But the one thing I will say is not all is lost. That is the most important thing for your graduate school application, is to have that work experience. That's what you're going to be writing about in your essay. So you might not get formal credit, but it will help you get into the schools you want to get into. So it's kind of, it's not all lost, for sure.
That's wonderful. Great answer.
Great questions.
You mentioned that there aren't cutoff stats. Are there any average or median class statistics for graduate programs at Cornell? And then which kinds of academic disciplines use seminar series versus direct admit programs to pair students with faculty advisors?
Okay, so I'll post a link in just a second. At Cornell, we publish all of our statistics on graduate program statistics on applications, admissions, and yield, so matriculations to our program. We also publish the statistics on completion rates, so how many students start the program and complete the program, and you can delineate that by program. You can also delineate that by gender and sex and race and ethnicity, so you can kind of really get a good picture of what each program is like. We don't publish average GPAs or average GRE scores because we don't care about those. We really, really, really don't. There are students who have 2-point-something GPAs and get into PhD programs at Cornell. That is an absolute fact. But they have lots of great experience and a great background. So we don't publish that information because it's just not, it's not as important to us as maybe it is to other people. And then in terms of which types of programs offer seminar series, can you remind me of the second part of the question there? Seminar series and
so it says, which kinds of academic disciplines use seminar series versus direct admit programs to pick students, faculty advisors?
Yep, it's not a particular type of program. So it's not to say like, oh, all engineering programs do a seminar series and all physical sciences programs do direct admit. It's dependent on the program. So I just want you to be asking this question so you know how they're doing it. Primarily because if they're doing a direct admit, it just makes me a little nervous because I want you to know the faculty. I want them to know you more than anything. I want you to know them and them to know you as you're a partner, because it's just really important.
Yeah, community is really
one type
important.
of program that favors one over the other. But biological and life sciences, they really do favor lab rotations. I can tell you that.
Thank you. And JJ, you have a Twitter follower, just to let you know. Someone is really
thank you so much.
Excited to learn about your research. So let me see. I'm a chemistry environmental science student at UMD, so very interested to hear about your experience. So that's also to JJ. Just really seeing his. And then so one of the questions for JJ also is, what year are you and which campus are you at?
Oh, I sent that actually to Priya.
Oh, I see.
I do a lot of work with University of Maryland. So.
Okay, yeah, I see you guys. So I have another student. She says, hi, I'm doing my second master's at data science after doing a master's in energy systems engineering. I really want to do a PhD on a research topic that is a fusion of these two fields, but my university is not so well known. Cornell has always been my dream school since I was in my undergrad back in India. After my initial research on LinkedIn, I found most of the students doing PhDs were from reputed universities or Ivy Leagues. I'm afraid if I would get any attention to my application as I belong to a not so reputed university in Minnesota. Also, reputed. Also, is it too late to apply for summer internships in Cornell for 2021?
Okay, so the internship question is relatively simple. So it's technically too late to apply because they start in 2 weeks. But if you send me an email, let's just talk, because there could potentially be a faculty member out there who's still looking for a student, and I'm always willing to try. And I can't promise anything, but I am willing to try. And sometimes we can figure that out, and we'll just see what happens there. Okay, so just email me. And then in terms of the other question, I need to really dispel this. Like, maybe what you're seeing on LinkedIn is that they're all Ivy League. Absolutely not. We have students coming from schools you've literally never heard of. And we have students coming from teeny little schools. We certainly have students from Ivy Leagues and things like that. And the reason why they're coming from Ivy Leagues that you're seeing is because they've done a lot of research. That's why, because they've been afforded the opportunity to do that. So you have 2 master's degrees going for you. You have done an awful lot of work, okay? So you and I need to talk, because we can figure out what program is the best one for you at Cornell. So I mentioned we're really interdisciplinary. We can find a program that's going to merge both of these interests, and we can find a faculty member who who hopefully would be interested in taking a look at your application. But we'll just do a little bit of work to make sure that we're highlighting the best pieces of your background. You have 2 master's degrees, for goodness sakes. You definitely have what it takes to apply to a PhD program at Cornell University. I don't care what school you're from.
Thank you, Anitra. And then our last question so far is, are the PhD programs online? Are any of the PhD programs based in New York City or only in Ithaca?
Okay, we do not have any online PhD programs. They're tough to put online, particularly if you're doing research. So there are some out there, and we don't offer any. But if that's something you're really, really interested in, I can help you figure out which ones are the best ones to consider. And then we do have PhD programs in New York City at the Tech campus, at the Cornell Tech campus. They do also have a graduate school that is affiliated with our medical college. So for instance, they have things like immunology, they have biochemistry, they have, I think it's 7 or 8 different disciplines you can specialize and get a PhD in. We have them in Ithaca too, but they're not tied directly with the medical campus per se. So we kind of have 2 different versions of some of those programs. And then they offer ones that we can't offer because we don't have a medical school. We do have the veterinary college. So like our immunology program is tied to our veterinary college. Their immunology program is tied to the med school. So there are PhD programs down in New York City.
Wonderful, thank you for that. We do have a special request for JJ if he could talk a few more minutes on his research, just to share a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. I was just not sure if there was the right forum, but I mean, I'm happy to.
A few minutes, JJ.
No, so I first was doing organic chemistry and synthesis for materials, and now I'm actually switching over, which goes perfectly with what Anitra said earlier about you get to discover your interest on your way. So I did some work with Professor Philip Milner, doing synthesis of covalent organic frameworks and also metal organic frameworks, which are porous materials, and they have tons of different applications, right? Gas storage, energy conversion as well, catalysis, you name it. If you can dream it, a moth or a cough can make it. So that, and now I'm actually switching over to the more solar energy conversion and the efficiency, understanding how charge is generated in materials for solar cells, and how charges are being transferred through the material itself at the micro scale using non-contact techniques with Professor John Marone. And emerging photovoltaics materials, right? So there's perovskites, that's going to be the main. There's also organic polymers, non-Fillerian acceptors, and those are the main metal organic frameworks as well, like emerging materials in organic in photovoltaics.
Thank you for sharing. I know it was hard to be brief because it's so exciting to it's like I want to talk about. I know we could have a nerd fest here, and I would be totally on board. But we're gonna respect everybody else on the call. There is one more question. What would you say are the chances for international students for getting into Cornell?
Great. I wanted to make sure I could address that because I didn't talk specifically about international students, but 50% of our graduate student body are international students. So the chances are just as good as if you were a domestic student. And we don't treat international students any differently than we do domestic students. So I don't want you to worry about your status as an international student being a barrier or anything like that in terms of admission. And particularly at the PhD level, just so you know, all PhDs are fully funded. It doesn't matter if you're an international student or a domestic student. Okay, so don't let that worry you.
That's so awesome. All right, if there are any more questions, ask them now before we close out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for a wonderful presentation, great information. generosity, thoughtfulness, caring about our minority students, and wanting to make sure everyone understands the doors are open at Cornell. You can go to Cornell. Anitra is waving the flag. Students, come here. I want to help you. So the only barrier is you, right? So I hope you guys will take advantage of this opportunity, and I hope that you enjoyed this session. Thank you, everyone, for calling in, and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having us. Extremely grateful and happy to be a participant of this event. I
Thank
just
you,
put my email there.
Thank you, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Bye.